My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Not a call, just a text. I was putting away the dishes from lunch, the ones my late wife Patricia used to call our everyday china, even though they were just regular plates from Canadian Tire. The text was from Rachel. I dried my hands on the towel and picked up the phone. "Dad, I need to talk to you about Thanksgiving." I stared at those words for a moment, already feeling something heavy settle in my chest. It was the second week of September. Thanksgiving was still a month away. Why would she need to talk about it now, unless something was wrong? The three dots appeared. She was typing. I waited. "Greg's parents are coming to stay with us this year. We're doing a small gathering. Just the nuclear family, you understand. Maybe you can come up to Toronto the weekend after? We'll do a nice brunch or something." Nuclear family. I read those two words 3 times. Nuclear family. My daughter, her husband, their 2 kids. And apparently, Greg's parents somehow fit into that definition, but I didn't. I'd been driving 3 hours from Vancouver to Toronto every Thanksgiving for the past 5 years, ever since Patricia died. Every single year since my wife passed away, I made that drive. Sometimes in the rain, once in an early snowfall that made the highway treacherous. I never missed it. And now, nuclear family. I set the phone down without responding. I went back to the dishes. My hands were shaking slightly as I placed the last plate in the cupboard. The same cupboard Patricia organized 27 years ago when we first bought this house. She'd put little shelf liners in, the kind with the grip texture so plates wouldn't slide. Those liners were still there, worn now, edges curling up but still there. I thought about last year's Thanksgiving. I'd arrived at Rachel's house around 2 in the afternoon. The dinner wasn't until 6. I'd offered to come earlier to help, but Rachel said 2 was fine. When I got there, Greg's parents were already there. They'd been there since the morning, apparently. Greg's mother, Donna, was in the kitchen with Rachel, laughing about something. Greg's father, Bill, was in the living room with Greg, watching football. The kids were running around the basement. I stood in the entranceway with my bottle of wine and the pumpkin pie. I'd driven 3 hours with carefully balanced on the passenger seat. And Rachel had said, "Oh, Dad, you're here. Just put your stuff anywhere. Dinner's not for a while. Just put your stuff anywhere." I'd sat on the couch in the corner of the living room. Bill had nodded at me. We'd never had much to talk about. He was a retired contractor. I'd been a high school English teacher. We existed in different universes. Every now and then, Greg would try to include me in their football conversation, asking me something about the Canucks. Even though we were watching NFL, not hockey, I'd answer. The conversation would drift back to just the 2 of them. At dinner, I sat at the end of the table. Donna sat at the other end, next to Rachel. They served the food family style, passing bowls around. By the time everything reached me, Rachel was already suggesting people take seconds. "Dad, do you want more turkey?" she'd asked. "There's plenty left." Leftovers. I got the leftovers while everyone else was on seconds. After dinner, Greg's parents stayed to help clean up. I'd offered too, but Rachel said, No, Dad, you relax. You drove all that way." So I'd sat in the living room with my grandson, who was 7 and more interested in his iPad than talking to me. I left around 9. Rachel walked me to the door. "Thanks for coming, Dad. Drive safe." She hugged me quickly, the kind of hug you give someone you're trying to politely remove from your house. I'd driven 3 hours home that night thinking, next year will be better. Next year I'll arrive earlier. Next year I'll insist on helping in the kitchen. Next year they'll see me as part of things, not just a guest. And now there wouldn't be a next year. Not like that, anyway. Because this year, I wasn't invited at all. I looked at my phone again. Rachel hadn't sent anything else. No explanation, no apology. Just nuclear family and an offer of brunch the weekend after, like that somehow made up for excluding me from the actual holiday. I thought about responding. I typed out a few different messages. "I understand. Delete. That's fine. Delete. Am I not family? Delete." Finally, I just locked my phone and left it on the counter. That evening, I called my son James. He lived in Calgary, worked in oil and gas, had his own family. We talked maybe once a month, usually about weather or hockey or how the grandkids were doing. I didn't call him to complain about Rachel. I just wanted to hear a voice that wasn't my own. "Hey, Dad," he answered. I could hear his kids in the background, shouting about something. "What's up?" "Nothing much," I said. "Just wanted to check in. How are things?" "Busy, you know. Work's crazy right now. Sarah's got the kids in about 17 different activities. I feel like we live in the van." He laughed. "What about you? You good?" "I'm good," I said. "Looking forward to the fall. Getting cooler." "Yeah, we got our first frost last night. Can you believe it? September's not even over." There was a crash in the background. "Sorry, Dad. I gotta go. Ethan just knocked over something. I'll call you soon, okay?" "Sure. Talk soon." He hung up. I sat there in my kitchen, in the house I'd lived in for 27 years, the house where I'd raised 2 kids and buried 1 wife, and I felt more alone than I'd felt in a long time. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept thinking about nuclear family. I even got up at one point and looked it up on my laptop. Wikipedia said a nuclear family was a family group consisting of 2 parents and their children. By that definition, I wasn't nuclear family anymore. My kids were grown. They'd formed their own nuclear families. I was, what, extended family? Optional family? The next morning, I texted Rachel back. Just 2 words. "I understand." She responded immediately. "Thanks, Dad. I knew you'd get it. Love you." "Love you? Sure." I spent the next few weeks going through my regular routine. I'd retired from teaching 3 years ago, so my days were mostly my own. I volunteered at the library on Tuesdays, helped shelve books, and run the reading group for seniors. I went to the community center on Thursdays for the walking club. Saturdays, I had coffee with Frank, my old colleague from the high school, where we'd both taught for nearly 30 years. It was at one of those Saturday coffees, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, that Frank asked me what I was doing for the holiday. "Nothing much," I said. "Rachel's doing a small thing in Toronto. Just immediate family." Frank looked at me over his mug. Frank was 71, had buried 2 wives, and had the kind of face that had seen enough nonsense in life that nothing surprised him anymore. "And you're not immediate family?" "Apparently not." "That's garbage," Frank said. "What's James doing?" "They're going to Sarah's parents in Edmonton." "So both your kids have plans that don't include you." "They have their own families now, Frank. That's how it works." "That's not how it works," Frank said. "That's how it works when people forget where they came from." He drank his coffee. "You know what you should do? You should go somewhere. Do something for yourself. Show them you've got a life too." "Like what?" "I don't know. Take a trip. Go see something you've always wanted to see. When's the last time you did something just because you wanted to?" I thought about it. When had I last done something just for me? Patricia and I used to take road trips. We'd drive down the coast, stop at little towns, eat at local diners. We'd been to Portland 5 times, San Francisco twice. She'd wanted to see the redwoods. We'd been planning a trip when she got sick. Stage 4. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. We never made it to the redwoods. "The redwoods," I said. "What?" Patricia always wanted to see the redwood forests. In California, we never went. Frank nodded. "So go. Go for Thanksgiving. Drive down the coast. See the trees. Take some pictures. Post them on Facebook so your kids see you're not sitting at home feeling sorry for yourself." I started to say it was a crazy idea. I started to say I couldn't just drive to California alone. I started to say a lot of things, but then I stopped. Why couldn't I? What was stopping me? The fact that my daughter didn't want me at her Thanksgiving dinner? That seemed like more of a reason to go, not less. "Maybe I will," I said. Frank grinned. "Good. About time you did something for yourself." I spent the next week planning. I mapped out the route. Vancouver to Seattle, to Portland to the coast, Highway 101 down through Oregon, into California, Crescent City, Eureka, the Avenue of the Giants. I'd stay in motels, eat at roadside diners, stop whenever I wanted to stop. I'd take my time, make it a week-long trip. Leave the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, come back the following Tuesday. I didn't tell Rachel. I didn't tell James. I just packed my bag, loaded up my old Camry, and left. The drive was beautiful. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed being on the road, how much I'd missed it since Patricia died. We used to do all our road trips in this same car, It had nearly 300,000 kilometers on it now, but it still ran fine. Patricia used to say this car would outlive both of us. She'd been wrong about that, but only because she died too young, not because the car died too soon. I took my time. I stopped in Seattle for lunch, walked around Pike Place Market. I'd been there before, years ago, but it felt different now, like I was seeing it with fresh eyes. Not just as a stop on the way to somewhere else, but as a place in itself. I bought a coffee from the original Starbucks. Not because I even liked Starbucks, but because Patricia had always wanted to do that, and we'd never gotten around to it. I got to Portland by evening, found a small motel near the river. The next day, I drove the Coast Highway. The Oregon coast is stunning in late September. The tourist crowds are gone. The weather's cool but not cold, and the light has that soft golden quality that photographers love. I stopped at Overlooks, took pictures on my phone. Not selfies. I've never been comfortable with selfies. Just pictures of the ocean, the rocks, the lighthouse at Cape Blanco. By Friday, I was in the redwoods. I drove through the Avenue of the Giants, those massive trees towering overhead, some of them 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old. They'd been here before Canada was a country, before my great-great-great-grandparents were even born. They'd be here long after I was gone. There was something humbling about that, something that made my problems with Rachel seem very small. I parked at one of the trails and walked among the trees. It was quiet, not silent. You could hear birds, wind in the branches, a creek somewhere nearby, but quiet in the way that makes you aware of your own breathing, your own heartbeat. I thought about Patricia. I thought about how much she would have loved this. I took out my phone and took a picture of one of the largest trees, a giant so wide around that 5 people holding hands couldn't encircle it. And then, on impulse, I turned the camera around and took a selfie. Me, in my old blue jacket that Patricia bought me for my 60th birthday, standing in front of this ancient tree, smiling. I looked at the photo. I looked happy. When was the last time I'd looked happy? I posted it to Facebook. I hardly ever posted on Facebook. My account was mostly dormant, something I'd made years ago because Rachel said I should stay connected. But I posted this photo. I didn't write much. Just, Patricia always wanted to see the redwoods. Finally made it. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I put my phone back in my pocket and kept walking. I spent another hour on the trail, sat by the creek and ate a sandwich I'd picked up at a grocery store in Eureka. The sun was filtering through the trees in long golden beams. I felt peaceful. More peaceful than I'd felt in months, maybe years. When I got back to my motel that evening, my phone was buzzing. I'd left it in the car because I wanted to have the walk without distractions. Now, looking at the screen, I had 17 missed calls. 13 from Rachel, 4 from James, a flood of text messages. My hands started shaking. Something must have happened. Someone must be hurt. Why else would they call so many times? I called Rachel first. She answered on the first ring. Dad, oh my God, where are you? I'm in California, I said. What's wrong? Is everyone okay? What do you mean you're in California? You're supposed to be in Vancouver. I'm fine, Rachel. I'm on a trip. Why were you calling? What's the emergency? The emergency is that you're in California. I saw your Facebook post. You're at the Redwoods? Who are you with? I was confused. I'm alone. Why are you? You're alone? Dad, this is insane. Why would you drive to California alone? Because I wanted to see the Redwoods. Patricia always wanted to. Is this because of Thanksgiving? Are you upset about Thanksgiving? I took a breath. No, Rachel. This has nothing to do with you. It clearly has everything to do with me. You're making a statement, posting photos on Facebook, making sure everyone sees you're off having a great time somewhere else. I posted one photo. One photo is all it takes, Dad. Do you know how this looks? Greg's parents saw it. They asked me why you weren't spending Thanksgiving with us. I had to explain that we'd made other plans, and now they think I excluded you, which makes me look terrible. I felt something shift in my chest. Something that had been sitting there, heavy and quiet, suddenly became sharp and hot. You did exclude me, Rachel. There was silence on the other end. Then, that's not fair. Nuclear family, I said. That's what you said. Nuclear family. Just you and Greg and the kids. Except somehow Greg's parents were also included in that definition, but I wasn't. Dad, that's different. They were already planning to visit. It would have been rude to tell them they couldn't come for Thanksgiving. But it wasn't rude to tell me I couldn't come? You're not, she stopped. That came out wrong. I'm not what? Finish the sentence. You're not in the same situation. You live alone. You don't have anyone else depending on you. Greg's parents have each other. They're a unit. It made sense to include both of them. And I'm just one person, so I'm easier to exclude. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I heard her take a breath. Dad, you're twisting my words. I invited you to brunch the weekend after. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to make things easier. It's hard hosting a big crowd. And with Greg's parents staying with us, the house is already full, and the kids have their activities. And I'm just too much trouble. Stop putting words in my mouth. Her voice was sharp now, defensive. I realized we were fighting, really fighting. We hadn't fought like this since she was a teenager, and I told her she couldn't go to some concert in Seattle with her boyfriend. She'd yelled at me then that I didn't understand her life, that I was old-fashioned and controlling. I'd stood my ground. She'd gone to her room and slammed the door. Patricia had mediated, the way she always did, and by the next morning, everything was fine. But Patricia wasn't here to mediate now. I have to go, I said. I'm tired from driving. Dad, wait. I hung up. My hands were still shaking. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at the blank TV screen, seeing my own reflection in the black glass. An old man in a blue jacket, alone in a motel room in Northern California, fighting with his daughter on the phone. My phone buzzed again. A text from James. Dad, call me, please. Rachel's freaking out. I didn't call. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning was Thanksgiving Saturday. In Canada, Thanksgiving is the second Monday in October, but the whole weekend has a holiday feel. I drove further south, to a small town called Ferndale. I had breakfast at a local diner. The waitress was maybe 25, had a nose ring and bright pink hair. She called me Hun and kept my coffee topped up without asking. I ordered pancakes and eggs. The pancakes were massive, easily twice the size of a normal pancake. I ate 1.5 and couldn't finish. Too much food, Hun? The waitress asked when she came to clear my plate. Just right, I said. I'm not as young as I used to be. She laughed. None of us are. She glanced at my jacket, which had a small Canadian flag pin on the collar. You visiting from Canada? Vancouver. Long way from home. You here for work? Just traveling. Seeing things I've always meant to see. She nodded. That's nice. Good for you. Most people just talk about traveling, never actually do it. After breakfast, I walked around Ferndale. It was one of those small Victorian towns where everything looked like it was from another century. I took more pictures. I turned my phone back on to use the camera, and immediately it started buzzing with messages. I ignored them and just took my photos. The old buildings, the main street, a church with a tall white steeple. Then I posted another photo. This time, a picture of the main street with the caption, Ferndale, California. Beautiful little town. Wish I'd discovered it years ago. I put my phone away and spent the rest of the day just walking, not thinking about Rachel or James or Thanksgiving or nuclear families, just being present where I was. That evening, back at my motel, I checked my phone properly. 23 missed calls now, more texts than I could count. Most were from Rachel, increasingly frantic. Dad, please call me. I'm worried about you. This is ridiculous. You're being childish. Childish. That word stuck with me. I was being childish for taking a trip, for wanting to do something for myself, for not sitting at home alone on Thanksgiving, grateful for the scraps of attention my children threw my way. There was a text from James. Dad, I know you're upset, but you need to call Rachel. She's really worried. We both are. And one from Rachel's husband, Greg. Hey, Bill, not sure what's going on, but Rachel's pretty shaken up. Can you give her a call when you get a chance? Bill. He'd called me Bill. My name is William. I've never gone by Bill in my life. Greg has known me for 12 years. 12 years, and he still doesn't know my actual name. I called Frank instead. How's the trip? he asked when he answered. The trip is great, I said. The family drama is less great. What happened? I told him everything. The calls, the texts, Rachel's accusation that I was making a statement. Frank listened quietly. When I finished, he said, "You are making a statement. I'm just taking a trip." You're just taking a trip that happened to coincide with Thanksgiving, that you're documenting on Facebook, that you told nobody about in advance. Come on, William. You wanted them to know you have a life outside of being their father. And now they know. Is that wrong? No. It's about time. But you can't be surprised they're reacting. You've spent 5 years being available whenever they wanted you. Always driving to Toronto. Always showing up when Rachel asked. Always saying yes. You trained them to expect that. And now you're doing something different, and they don't know how to handle it. So what do? Enjoy your trip. Answer their calls when you're ready. Set your boundaries. But be prepared for the fact that setting boundaries pisses people off, especially people who've benefited from you not having any. I thought about that. You think that's what I was doing? Not having boundaries? I think you've spent 5 years trying to be the kind of father who doesn't inconvenience his children. And in the process, you made yourself someone they could take for granted. That night, I wrote a long text to both Rachel and James. I didn't send it right away. I wrote it, read it, deleted half of it, rewrote it. Finally, around 10 o'clock, I sent it. I know you're both worried. I'm fine. I'm safe. I'm in California visiting the redwood forests, something your mother and I always planned to do. I should have told you I was going, and I'm sorry I didn't, but I'm not sorry for going. Rachel, I love you, and I understand that you have your own life and your own family to prioritize. But I have a life too. I'm not just sitting at home waiting for the occasional invitation to brunch. I have friends, I have interests, I have places I want to see and things I want to do. I should have said something when you told me about Thanksgiving, but I didn't know how without sounding like I was guilt-tripping you. So instead, I decided to do something for myself. That's all this trip is. It's not a statement against you. It's a statement for me. I'll be home on Tuesday. We can talk then if you want. Love, Dad. Rachel called within 5 minutes. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Dad. Her voice was different now, quieter. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. I let her continue. I didn't realize. I knew you'd be alone for Thanksgiving, but I thought you'd be okay with it. You never said anything. You always just said you understood. I did understand, I said. I understood that you wanted a smaller gathering. I understood that Greg's parents were visiting. I understood all of it. But understanding doesn't mean I wasn't hurt. You should have told me. Would it have changed anything? She was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Maybe. I didn't think you cared that much. You always seemed fine when you left after Thanksgiving. You never said you felt left out or like we weren't including you enough. What was I supposed to say? Rachel, I drove 3 hours to see you and you stuck me at the end of the table with the cold turkey. That would have just made everyone uncomfortable. Is that how you felt? Like we stuck you at the end? Sometimes. Not always. But sometimes, yes. I heard her breath catch. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know you felt that way. I know you didn't. That's partly my fault. I should have said something sooner. But Rachel, it's not just about Thanksgiving. It's about, I've been feeling like I'm becoming optional in your life. Like you fit me in when it's convenient. And when it's not convenient, I'm easy to set aside. You're not optional. You're my father. Then treat me like I matter. Not just as someone to have brunch with when the real holiday is over. I'm 64 years old. I'm not going to be around forever. And I don't want to spend whatever time I have left feeling like I'm an obligation my children are trying to manage. She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. I never wanted you to feel that way. Never. I know. Will you come for Thanksgiving? Please? I'll tell Greg's parents they can stay at a hotel. We'll make room. No, I said gently. I'm staying here. I'm seeing the redwoods. I'm taking this trip. But thank you for offering. What about the weekend after? Can we still do brunch? I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. How about the weekend after? You and Greg and the kids drive to Vancouver and have Thanksgiving at my house. I'll cook. I'll do the whole thing. Turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie. You'd do that? If you'll come. Yes. Yes, absolutely. We'll be there. After we hung up, I sat on the motel bed feeling lighter than I'd felt in days, maybe years. I called James next. That conversation was shorter. He apologized for not inviting me to Edmonton. I told him it was fine. I understood they were going to Sarah's parents. But maybe next year we could alternate, or find a way to include me. He agreed immediately. I spent the rest of the weekend in California. I saw more redwoods, drove through more small towns, ate at more diners. I took pictures of everything. I posted a few more to Facebook, but not to make a statement, just because they were beautiful and I wanted to remember them. On Thanksgiving Monday, I was driving back north through Oregon when my phone rang. It was Rachel. Happy Thanksgiving, Dad. Happy Thanksgiving. What are you doing today? Driving. Probably stop somewhere for lunch. Maybe find a place that's open for dinner. Are you lonely? I thought about it. No, not really. I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. There's a difference. I'm glad. I've been thinking about what you said, about feeling optional. I talked to Greg about it, and to his parents. Actually. You told Greg's parents? Not everything. Just that I'd hurt your feelings and I needed to make it right. Donna said something that really stuck with me. She said when her kids were young, she always thought the hardest part was taking care of them. But then they grew up and the hard part became figuring out how to stay connected without being intrusive. She said it's a balance, and she's still figuring it out with Greg and his sister. She's right. It is a balance. I want to find that balance with you, Dad. I don't want you to feel optional. I want you to feel like you're still a central part of our lives. Because you are. I want that too. We'll figure it out. Starting with Thanksgiving at your place next weekend. The kids are already excited. Emma asked if she can help you cook. Emma was my 10-year-old granddaughter. She'd always been interested in cooking. Asked Patricia for recipes when she was barely tall enough to reach the counter. Tell her yes. Absolutely yes. After we hung up, I drove for another hour before stopping for lunch at a seafood place in Coos Bay. I ordered clam chowder and fish and chips. The chowder was excellent, thick and creamy with big chunks of clam. I ate slowly, watching the boats in the harbor through the window. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Sarah and I were talking. How would you feel about coming to Calgary for Christmas? We'll pay for your flight. The kids would love to see you. I texted back. I'd love that. Thank you. Another buzz. This time from Frank. How's the trip? You doing okay? Better than okay. Heading home tomorrow. Coffee on Saturday? Wouldn't miss it. Want to hear all about it. I finished my lunch and got back on the road. The drive north was beautiful. The coast highway winding along cliffs and beaches, through forests and small towns. I stopped when I wanted to stop, drove when I wanted to drive. I was in no hurry. That night, in a motel in Eugene, Oregon, I looked through all the photos I'd taken over the past week. The redwoods, the coast, the small Victorian towns. There were 47 pictures. In 3 of them, I was actually in the photo. In the rest, I was just the observer, capturing the world around me. I thought about what Frank had said, about making a statement for myself rather than against Rachel. He was right. This trip wasn't about punishing my daughter for not inviting me to Thanksgiving. It was about remembering that I was still a person with desires and interests and the ability to do something just because I wanted to. Patricia and I used to talk about this sometimes. Late at night when the kids were asleep, we'd talk about what we wanted to do when we retired, when the kids were grown and we had time to ourselves again. She wanted to travel. I wanted to write. Maybe work on that novel I'd been planning since I was 30. We'd planned to do both. Travel in the fall and spring, write in the summer, spend winters being grandparents. But then she got sick, and all those plans evaporated. And after she died, I just existed. I went through the motions. I volunteered at the library, walked with the seniors group, had coffee with Frank. I showed up when my kids called. I was reliable, available, convenient. But I wasn't really living. I was just filling time until there was no more time to fill. This trip, as small as it was, felt like the first time in 5 years that I'd actually chosen to live. Not just exist, but live. Do something because I wanted to, not because someone needed me to. I got home on Tuesday afternoon. The house was exactly as I'd left it. Same dishes in the drying rack, same coffee mug in the sink, same quiet rooms, but it felt different somehow. Less like a place I was stuck, and more like a place I chose to be. That weekend, Rachel and her family came for Thanksgiving. They arrived on Saturday afternoon, and we spent the evening cooking together. Emma helped me make the stuffing, carefully measuring out the sage and thyme like I showed her. Rachel and I made the pumpkin pie, using Patricia's recipe that I'd written down in the old cookbook that still had flour fingerprints on some of the pages from 20 years ago. Greg's parents didn't come. Rachel said they were spending the weekend in Niagara Falls. I wondered if that was true or if Rachel had arranged it that way. Either way, I didn't ask. On Sunday, we had our Thanksgiving dinner. Just the 6 of us. Me, Rachel, Greg, and their 2 kids. We sat around the dining table I'd bought with Patricia when we first got married. The one we'd refinished together, 5 years into our marriage, when the kids had scratched it up with toy cars. This time, I didn't sit at the end. I sat at the head of the table, where I'd always sat when Patricia was alive. Rachel sat at the other end, where her mother used to sit. The kids sat on one side, Rachel and Greg on the other. We said grace. I'm not particularly religious, but Patricia had always insisted on saying grace at Thanksgiving, so we did. Rachel stumbled through it a little, trying to remember the words her mother used to say. Emma helped her. That 10-year-old had a better memory than any of us. The turkey was perfect. The stuffing was good. The cranberry sauce was from a can, but nobody complained. We ate and talked and laughed. Emma told me about her school play. My grandson, Charlie, who was 7 and usually quiet, told me about a book he was reading about dinosaurs. Greg asked me about the redwoods. I showed him some pictures on my phone. He seemed genuinely interested. Asked questions about the drive and the towns I'd stayed in. For the first time in 12 years, he called me William instead of Bill. After dinner, Rachel and I did the dishes while everyone else went to the living room. We worked in silence for a few minutes, her washing, me drying, the same way Patricia and I used to do it. Thank you for this, Rachel said quietly. For inviting us, for cooking, for everything. Thank you for coming. I'm still sorry. About what I said, about Thanksgiving? I know. We're past it now. Are we? Really? I put down the towel and looked at her. Really looked at her. She was 38 years old, my daughter. But in that moment I saw her as she used to be. 7 years old, helping her mother in this same kitchen, standing on a stool so she could reach the counter. Asking a million questions about why we had to measure ingredients, and why the cookies needed exactly 12 minutes in the oven, and why we couldn't eat them right away when they were hot. Really, I said. But Rachel, I need you to understand something. I'm not going to just go along with things anymore. If something bothers me, I'm going to say it. If I feel left out, I'm going to tell you. I spent 5 years trying to be easy, trying not to be a burden, and all it did was make me feel invisible. You were never invisible. Sometimes I was, not because you meant to make me feel that way, but because I let you. I didn't speak up. I didn't set boundaries. I just accepted whatever you offered and pretended it was enough. And now I'm going to be honest, which might be uncomfortable sometimes, but it's better than the alternative. She nodded. I can handle uncomfortable. I want you to be honest. I want to know when I've hurt you or when you need something different. Okay then. We have a deal. She smiled. Deal? We finished the dishes. I hung up the towel, the same towel I'd hung up 1,000 times before, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like a beginning rather than an ending. That night, after Rachel and her family had gone to their hotel, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea and thought about the past week. The drive to California, the redwoods, the small towns, the confrontation with Rachel, the resolution, all of it. I thought about what I'd learned. That being alone doesn't mean being lonely. That setting boundaries doesn't mean being selfish. That asking for what you need doesn't make you a burden. that you can love your children and still prioritize your own life. I thought about Patricia, about how she would have handled this situation. She probably would have told Rachel straight up, years ago, that she felt left out. Patricia had never been afraid of uncomfortable conversations. She used to say that discomfort was just growth trying to happen. I wished she was here. I wished I could tell her about the redwoods, about how beautiful they were, about how I finally understood what she meant when she said she wanted to see them. But she wasn't here, and I was learning, slowly, painfully, that being okay with her absence didn't mean forgetting her. It meant carrying her with me in a different way. My phone buzzed. A text from Frank. How was the big dinner? Good, really good. Told you it would work out. You were right. Thanks for pushing me to take the trip. Anytime. That's what friends are for. I set down my phone and finished my tea. Outside, it was dark. The October night was cool, almost cold. Winter would be here soon. Then Christmas. James had invited me to Calgary. Rachel had already texted asking about New Year's, wondering if I wanted to come to Toronto. I had options now, not because my children had suddenly become more attentive, but because I'd reminded them and myself that I was still here, still living, still a person with wants and needs, and the right to pursue them. I looked at the photos from California one more time before going to bed. The redwoods, the coast, the small Victorian town, and me, in my blue jacket, standing in front of that ancient tree, smiling. Patricia had wanted to see the redwoods. I saw them for both of us, and in doing so, I'd found something I didn't know I was looking for. I'd found myself again, not as someone's father or someone's husband, just as me, William, a 64-year-old man who still had places to go and things to do and years to live. I turned off the lights and went to bed. Tomorrow, I'd go to the library, help shelve books, run the reading group. Thursday, I'd go to the walking club. Saturday, I'd have coffee with Frank and tell him all about the dinner. But tonight, I went to sleep feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt like I mattered, not because my children needed me, not because I was useful or convenient or available, but because I existed, because I was here, because I had chosen to show up for my own life. And that, I was learning, was enough.